Welcome to Plus Talk on Plus Life, where we are all about turning positive into a plus. Today, my guest is Francisco Fernandez. He is running for Congress for the state of New Mexico, and if successful, will become the first openly gay, HIV positive person representing the state of New Mexico. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm doing well, thank you, Carl. It's a pleasure to see you as well. It's been a crazy 3 months for me. Today's actually nomination day. There's a special committee who made their votes count today, and those they're being counted as we speak. We should have, I think, results here maybe 15 minutes, if not less. So it's been a journey to say the least.
And tell me, when did this journey start for you, and what made you decide that you wanted to run for Congress?
Yeah, it's interesting. It actually started over Christmas weekend. It almost sounds like something right out of television. I was just gathered with a couple of friends, and we were really excited at Deb Haaland, our previous Congresswoman, just making history. At that time, she was nominated to Joe Biden's cabinet. And then all of a sudden, our excitement kind of calmed down, and we thought, well, who the hell's going to be our voice now? And my friends, they've been in my corner for the last 30 years. They know how much community and representation really matter. And they just kind of suggested, well, why not you? And after doing a lot of soul searching and talking and thought, I thought to myself, well, I'm not working on a TV production. I'm very, very much single with no kids. So there's nothing to tie me down. And I decided to dive right in, and I dove in pretty deep with these 7 candidates.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing.
And you're a lifelong social justice advocate. You believe, as we all should, representation matters now more than ever. Where does this passion come from for you?
Yeah, it comes from a young age for me. I guess kind of twofold. I'm a product of public and private schools. When I went to private school, I was in 6th grade, and I was living in, I guess you could say, a working class, heavily Hispanic neighborhood on the complete opposite side of the city from my school. And it wasn't until I attended that school that I realized, oh, I'm an other, so to speak. And it was the first time I didn't have really many teachers that looked like me, other students that look or spoke like me. And all of a sudden, it made an impact on my ability just to learn and really get my education. And so it hit me at a young age. Wait a minute, representation does matter, and I've carried it my whole life. Just really taking a stand for marginalized communities, even in school, through college, and in television production. It's why I went into TV, really wanting to get our narratives up on the screen and told. So yeah, it definitely matters, as we're seeing even today.
Yeah, and as I said, if elected to Congress, not only the first openly gay man, but also the first openly HIV positive person. What that can do to break down barriers and stigma alone is remarkable. Surely you're aware of that. Do you already have some kind of HIV agenda that you would want to work on as well?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say that I have an HIV agenda, so to speak, but passing universal healthcare, Medicare for all plan is up there, which would certainly take that into account. But with my voice in Congress, I would really want to just use that to bring about the fact that a lot of times people like us are left out, right? Like, people think that if there's universal healthcare, folks with HIV or other pre-existing conditions are automatically scooped up and cared for under that umbrella. But the reality is, a lot of folks still don't know what we face in terms of discrimination. I know I've felt that, and so it's kind of twofold. If we get universal health care, are we going to get people to actually show up for that, whether they're from the LGBTQ plus community or people of color? So I'd be a strong advocate for really just pushing a change in the healthcare system and making it more welcoming and accepting for all of us. Like you said, breaking down that stigma.
Yeah, to me, it seems healthcare in this country is just the biggest Mount Everest. I come from a world where socialized healthcare is the norm, and it works, and people are taken care of. You pay a little higher taxes, but guess what? Ambulance ride won't bankrupt you. How do you think that you can help affect that change? Because countless have come before you and then are following you. How do we get this change for something like universal healthcare in this country?
I think it's kind of what you mentioned before about being vocal and having representation. At least for me on the campaign trail, I've been able to speak more openly about my story. It really does change the narrative because I bring a face to the issue. So, for instance, I've been happy to talk about the price tag of healthcare, just having HIV, and then relating that to constituents who have something like diabetes, or in New Mexico, where actually liver disease is extremely high. So all of a sudden, you start to really build these bridges with folks, and they understand just how impactful it is on people's lives. I mean, out here alone, there's a solid 60% who can't afford a medical expense or a surprise medical expense that's $1,000, and we have about 35% living just kind of under depression and anxiety because of healthcare needs. So I think as we converse about it, certainly we start to get folks on board to pass what needs to be passed.
Well, obviously, the goal here is to get you on Congress, but is this the beginning of a bigger journey? Is this something that is, you talked about it happening over Christmas, but is this something that's been festering inside you for a long time?
That's a great question, Carl. It has been actually. I just didn't know what it would look like. For those unfamiliar with politics and running for office, it can vary by state, but it is incredibly difficult for an everyday person like myself to run. Even in New Mexico, because this was a special election, I wasn't required to have a certain amount of money or signatures to jump in. And so I was able to dive in on this particular opportunity. I hope it's the beginning of bigger things for sure, no matter how tonight unfolds. I don't want this to be the last time the public here in Albuquerque or in New Mexico see me for sure.
Tell me about the Latino student organization that you founded on the La Loya University of New Orleans, and give us a bit of insight on that and how that came about.
Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of goes back to the representation matter that we were talking about a moment ago. When I arrived on that campus, it turned out that Latinos were the majority minority, to use that phrase, but there was no student organization for us. For me, I'm the first in my family to go to college. I had really owned my Hispanic identity, and I thought to myself, well, where's our representation on this campus? And if it weren't for the folks from Black Student Union and the Asian organization on campus building a coalition, really just helping me to hone my voice and present what needed to be presented to student government, I don't think we would have had an organization. And it really mattered. At that time, I don't know how familiar your audience is with the South, but there are a lot of just racist incidents that happen to this day. They were happening back then, and it was beautiful to have folks like us come together to really combat that and change the university's attitude towards how they focus on race and diversity.
For you in your personal life, how do you go about on a daily sort of level of helping change people's minds and opinions when it comes to whether it be a race thing or even combating HIV stigma?
That's another great question. For me, it comes down to story. What I've realized is that when we're able just to open ourselves up, be a little bit more candid and vulnerable, it makes a huge impact. I've been positive since 2007, but even I kept it a secret from my family up until last year during the peak of COVID. So a lot of my advocacy with folks was more one-on-one, and it's just humbling to think about how many folks that I've been able to really just help through the process, because not everybody's ready to reach out to a whole organization or really put themselves out there, but they still need that support, regardless if it's with race or HIV, gender identification, and so forth. So the power in storytelling and just remembering we all have a history in how we got to this point. The more we connect, certainly the better.
That's got to have been a busy, a trying moment for you in the middle of a pandemic. Care to tell me how you came about telling your family, and what was the driving force, and how was it received?
Yeah, it was really tough. It was right after the peak of George Floyd's murder. There was just so much going on with COVID, so much uncertainty, and the thoughts just kind of culminated in my head. It could be something as small as me slipping in the shower and needing someone to call my family to tell them I'm in the hospital, and then, oh my gosh, what if they find out that way? Or what if it turns out people who are HIV positive couldn't make it through COVID? There were just so many different questions and concerns that came along that eventually I just had to just, I guess, find that courage, speak to my friends who had known the whole time, and tell my family. It was a little bit interesting. I was quarantined in LA and my family was all here in Albuquerque. I was fortunate enough to put my doctor on FaceTime and let them know what it was like. But when you come from a family like mine that's so caring and loving and accepting, the fear is either A, that might change, or B, they will worry like hell. Luckily, nothing changed. They were worried as hell for a moment, but now that they've just seen that I'm here, I'm whole, I'm complete, I'm able to live a normal life, it makes a huge difference. And for me, it makes just a huge relief of stress off my shoulders from something as small as not having to hide my medication, for instance, when I come to people's homes and whatnot. So it's huge. It's so liberating. I'm thankful for it.
Well, we're thankful that you felt the courage to share it with your story, and we're thankful that you've had the time to chat with us, and our fingers and toes and everything else we can cross are crossed, that you progress there on your journey. Francisco Fernandez, thank you so much for joining us on Plus Talk. That is all the time we've got for this episode of Plus Talk. If you want more information on what we've talked about today, just head to the website, pluslifemedia.com. And remember, you can follow us across social media at Plus Life Media. Until next time, I say it all the time, wash your hands, wear a mask, take care of each other. We'll see you next time.